So, the most memorable part in Mr. Burns that I found was the part where everyone's arguing about something as simple as the play that they were producing. This part of the play stood out to me because this is what I imagine typical of a post apocalypse society, where people are arguing about things that are not very important and it progressing to everyone fighting when they don't even know what they're fighting about. So, we found many themes that were predominant in this play. A few of the themes that I found were money and power, hope, and a tight friendship or bond. The reason I found money and power to be a pretty predominant theme was because the ending, where the characters are fighting about the other theaters having more spectators or more money coming in, just kind of took into that part where everybody's fighting and you want the most money, the most power. The next one that I found pretty predominant was hope, and this was because in the beginning, with the list being read to see if anyone knows anyone else that's still alive, it gave me this sense of hope throughout the book, and continuously I had this hope that things were going to get better, even though we were in this post-apocalypse society. This also related to my light at the end of the tunnel picture that I chose for the activity this week. Another predominant theme that I found was the tight friendships and bonds that were created. Meeting Gibson out in the woods was an example of this, and randomly they met him, but after being able to trust them, they allowed to stay with their group, and they offered him a beer, and they were lifetime friends from there on. So Act 3 is obviously a play within a play, and this kind of play is a meta-theatrical play. Three characteristics of this theater that I found were the fact that we have the story, we're learning the story that we are purposely reading, which is obviously Mr. Burns for us, but then we're also learning the story of The Simpsons. And this is kind of, you're following both stories at a time. This was the first clue that I had found. The second characteristic is when you're trying to recreate another story. So in the beginning of the story, they're sitting around a campfire and trying to rethink of lines from The Simpsons. The last characteristic that I had found was the breaking of the fourth wall, which we had found a couple of times in this story, but most specifically, the play that does this is Romeo and Juliet, that they break that fourth wall with the story within a story. Act 3 was definitely taken into consideration with Act 2, and the reason that these two acts connect is that you need to know, well, since we develop in time, we see that change in time. We don't see it entirely, but the progression of time with the playwright is definitely seen. And for something like this, where it's such a big jump in time, it's very important to go from that Act 2 to Act 3. Any story can be turned into a post-apocalypse world, but I definitely think a comedy is the best one to turn into.